I nearly found what I was looking for this morning. Not quite. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's the Reverb review of the day. All right, so check out this Les Paul. It's got so many things going for it. The first thing that caught my attention is look at how wide the flame is. Absolutely perfect for my preferences. The opposite of that is a more pinstripey top. That's what we refer to this flame pattern style with, where it's a little bit more straight. And don't get me wrong, this guitar is gorgeous in its own right. But when it's a little bit wider, you usually get more play in person with the whole chatoyant effect that we talk about. But on top of that, since this is an 80s Les Paul, you very often get this whole crossed-hatched wood grain flame pattern. So that means the grain runs the opposite direction of the flame and just gives you so much to look at. And look closely at our pickguard, poker chip, and switch tip. They have aged very beautifully, which also means there's a lot of ambering to the clear coat on this example. But next we need to look at the two papers that are by this thing. It reads Leo's Professional Audio, which if you don't know, they were a dealer back in the 80s, apparently in Oakland, California, according to this. They had their own signature run of dealer guitars, all the way back in 81, 82. And for those of you unfamiliar, Gibson doesn't start the whole reissue craze, actually calling them reissues something that they produce, until 1983, when what we refer to now as the prehistorics come out. So these prehistorics and small dealer runs have their own unique histories and lores and collectability to them due to that. It's because of dealers like these that we have what we have today. They certainly push things in the right direction. Now, is a Leo's Les Paul reissue very rare? No. In fact, there's a few things about these that people don't necessarily like. An easy way to identify a Leo's, even if you didn't have the paperwork, they have unusually high Gibson logos to them. It's slightly obscured because of the shadows from the case. But if you look at one head on as compared to like a modern day reissue, you can see this thing's like hoisted all the way to the top of the headstock that they possibly can. Now, sometimes they also move the Les Paul model silkscreen up to help that. But if you ever get a lower version one, then it becomes like really obvious. The other thing that makes them really easy to identify is their unique serial number system. If we zoom in here, it looks like it says L1. For some reason, I always thought it said LI. I guess that doesn't really make sense. But anyways, that stands for Leo's. 0131 is what number. And they made these from about 81 till 83. There's a decent amount out there. But there's one more important thing you should always have in your Reverb ad for one of these if you happen to be selling. Is it Nashville built or is it Kalamazoo produced? Because they made them in both. The Kalamazoo ones sell for a premium over the Nashvilles just because, yeah, I got the original factory, the original guys are making it, etc. I've actually had both on the show, but none of those videos are really worth searching up, honestly, because they're just so old at this point. I've been waiting for the right one to get and document, and I had to ask the seller for the photos, and thankfully, he watches the show. He's like, oh, that's cool. Here you go. He added them to the listing. Unfortunately, this one's Nashville. I'd really love to have a Kalamazoo in my collection, but at the same time, I could probably also go for both. But if you're asking, okay, I found one in the wild, how do I know the difference between the two? Because it's not going to be your usual telltale signs here. This one's easy. You don't need a PhD in Gibsonology. You just want to look along the rim over here. If it has an impressed serial number along this ledge, it's Kalamazoo produced. It's also the only way if you need a birthday, birth year version of this particular guitar, because the Nashville ones did not have this dating serial number. Now, just because you have this doesn't mean it's a Leo's Les Paul. There were a few other runs that also did that, but it's one of the coolest hidden serial number tricks that I'm aware of within Gibson's history, because Philip is asking $7,500. It's advertised as excellent condition. If that was Kalamazoo, I would have been making him a very close offer and bringing that home to my collection. But if you're interested, feel free to make him an offer. Even I might still make him an offer. That's just such a great top. But before we continue our guitar hunting tonight, I want to let you guys know Sweetwater is doing GuitarFest this weekend. They've got giveaways, they'll have some artists to hang out with as well as the brands. Sometimes these exclusive one-day in-person only deals are really good, like on strings, as well as limited edition guitars. Oh my goodness, Phil X is gonna be there. That's gonna be fun. We even got Yvette and Rob Scallon. And my favorite part are the iconic guitars that they are loaned from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Looks like there's some pretty cool ones. If you're within road trippable distance to Fort Wayne, Indiana, you gotta check Sweetwater out. But if you're too far away, Sweetwater is a great place to buy your online gear. As for example, the new 70s Les Paul Custom. You might like to know that this one's 9.5 pounds and this one is almost 10.5. You might also like to know that this one has a bunch of mineral streaks right here, or that this one has cool wood grain back here and a figured neck, or maybe that this serial number dates to the exact date that your kid was just born on. That's the power of shopping at Sweetwater. You know before you make the order. Thank you, Sweetwater, for being a long-term sponsor of my show. And if you're going and selling anything cool, feel free to send me an email. Maybe we can meet up. As our next one comes from Brian's Gear Locker. Typically, signatures on guitars do nothing for their value. If anything, it can hurt the value depending on who signed it and how it looks. But this thing caught my attention because it's an old Les Paul recording. I still need to review the original edition. I've done the two predecessors and I've done the recording too, but not this one. But the other reason I click on these signed ones is I'm curious, who signed it? According to the seller, he believes it's B.B. King. And I suppose that is a possibility. However, I'm not going to say one way or the other, because it looks like we've got some other stuff going on and drawings and then finish checking on top of that. But the price didn't seem too bad, $26. As historic as these things are, they're really not all that desirable. But then when I saw this photo, I was like, what? Serial number malfunction, it's only number 372. But no. You just got to get in there. The other digits are there. They just didn't catch the yellow grain fill as heavily. But sometimes errors like that do occur where something messed up on the machine and you only see like the last digits. But that certainly made it unique. And then we do have the original case. A lot of times those get lost or sold separately. And man, look at that headstock. Gorgeous. Beautifully ambered. But take a close look at that binding. That's what's unique about the Les Paul recording. It has predominant black binding and then the cream layers in between. And if you go back to our body shot over here, it's the same thing. That's part of what gives them their unique look. And another cool thing about this one is look at that dark wood grain mineral streak thing going on here, right by our comfort cut. Now that's an unfortunate spot for a light reflection because it really makes it look like a bolt-on, which there are counterfeit ones from the 70s that were done like that. But this photo is a good showing of our pancake body construction. So you got a maple sliver right in between our mahogany. But ouch! Headstock repair takes this one out of great deal territory. And if you were thinking, I'd buy that, use the case, just remember somebody's done some graffiti artwork underneath there. So as a Les Paul recording, maybe a little bit high yet. However, if you wanted a B.B. King sign something, and you can verify that's legit, that might be an affordable way to do it. But you gotta remember, B.B. signed a lot of things, and typically his signature is very large. And if you thought I was kidding, no. Loud and proud. But next up, down in Columbus, Ohio, we've got the 86 Les Paul Custom. $4,250 is not the worst price you could ever see on one of these, but what caught my attention is, replaced knobs, but yet they still look vintage, so they might have been taken from something 76-ish. As far as wine red customs go, quite attractive. Still a 3-piece top, but it's so dark you don't necessarily notice. It's got that characteristic mid-80s pick guard goes right over top of your binding right there. Yep, that is a thing. It's not a replaced part. But speaking of replaced parts, do you guys see what I see? Brass nut installed. Pretty cool. Definitely not from Gibson, although there were models that came stock like that. But you got some nice aging to the headstock, a little bit of chipping to your clear coat. There's certainly worse examples you could spend $4,500 on. Otherwise, the only thing that catches my attention are the strap buttons have been replaced to Schallers. Our frets, they look pretty decent for the age. The tuners have been replaced with locking Grover styles. However, if we look really closely, it probably started life with Grovers because we don't have any additional holes anywhere. So that's not as big of a deal as it is when they drill new holes into the headstock. You could restore that if you wanted to. Personally, I just leave it alone. They've got a nice patina to them already. The back's looking fairly clean, just some minor buckle worming here. But ouch, there it is. Always gotta be something. Wear through to the back of the neck. Seems like an odd spot for that, right in the back center. Like usually it happens like right here or on the other side, but straight back. I wonder if that was, oops, I accidentally put that against a hot heater and the finish melted off. Then we've got a large ding. Unfortunately, large dings on the neck is one of the worst places to have that because that matters to players. Dings on the body, most guys really don't care if they're looking for something that they can play. But when it comes to the neck, that adjusts the feel of the guitar significantly. And I want to say props to you, seller, for fully disclosing it multiple times. I'd say that's a seller you could trust. But next, sticking with our theme of signatures, I wanted to see who this one was. They're claiming it's Buddy Guy up here, which I don't think I've ever seen him sign a guitar before. But then again, I've never actively been looking. What honestly caught my attention more so on this one is it's a late 80s studio with 3 pickups. It looks like somebody's replaced our tuners. It is indeed an 89. You don't see too many of those nowadays. It's kind of a weird era for the studios where they have the dot inlays. Sometimes you can still find the ebony fretboard, but most times they're still just rosewood. Looks like we've had a few different pick guards on here. You might need to fill and re-drill that hole, but this one does appear to have the ebony board, and it's got some nicks and dings. Doesn't look like anything too nefarious, but I'm really curious about this middle pickup situation. And it looks like we've got an ABR1 bridge. You don't normally have that on those, so that's probably been replaced. Speaking of replaced, after 1985, the knobs don't age anymore, so those are an older part put onto this guitar. And unfortunately, that's as far as this ad goes. But at least in the listing, they do disclose that the third humbucker was added, and they tell you about some of the fun things that it can do. However, sellers, when that happens, please, please, please show a photo. And I say that to protect yourself, because if somebody pulls that and they see it's like a hacked up chisel job, they might not be happy about that. But if it's super professionally done, that might convince somebody who's otherwise a little bit leery about that whole situation to be like, you know what, that looks beautiful under there. It's craftsmanship in and of itself. I'm a big proponent of use all 25 photos Reverb allows you. This seller currently has 12. As far as the price, $1,500. Yeah, if you could haggle a little bit, it could be a bit better, especially since you don't have the hard shell case. But I don't think they're putting any premium on that supposed signature. Now we'll go into our lightning round. This one just seemed like a good deal. $5,000 for a 1960 reissue. It's about 3 years old, but it's got one of those nice super even tops. Not too pinstripey, not ultra wide. It's got a little bit of an angle to it, but you can save yourself $1,700, and that's before you even haggle with the guy. And oh, cool. It's even got a nice, interesting back. It's like fuzzy and slightly moving. It's over at Keith's Gear Outlet. There was a Les Paul Studio Deluxe 2 listed from 2013. These are nice if you want a flamey top studio with some other fancy specs, but interesting choice to put an old-timey Gibson sticker logo underneath the tailpiece. Not sure I would have done that, but it certainly made it unique enough to talk about. It looks like they also threw a roller bridge on there just for fun, as well as strap locks. Took our pickguard off and looked closely at those knobs. Those are a reissue of a 1952 tall speed knob. And I haven't actually read the listing, but if he says you can just remove that sticker, please be aware. Sometimes you'll have a sticker shadow, sometimes it can react to the finish. So generally speaking, if you're not okay with that risk, I suggest just leave the sticker there. And we're gonna end things tonight with, hey, what is going on here? Advertised as a Gibson Invader with Kaler. I clicked on this because I was pretty sure it's going to end up being a Gibson Dark Knight. That's when they put a Corvus headstock on an Invader to use up old parts. And that's almost exactly what this ended up looking like, but then it looked like somebody chopped our headstock, but I see it now. That was just, okay. Yeah. It was whatever hanger they're using there. I thought they sliced the headstock and we were missing the Gibson logo. Yeah, this is a Dark Knight in very, very dirty condition. However, to be fair, I think that's just a good polished job away from looking halfway decent, but who knows? It's got a lot of finish wear on the back of the neck, and that is not normal wear patterns. I do need to review this model, but I don't think that's the right one for me. Too much work for really not that great of a guitar, because it utilizes the regular Sonics pickups, which they're not fantastic unless you get the Dirty Fingers version. And ouch, that's not even wear, that's humidity damage. That's finish flaking. The good news is, though, that is a bolt-on neck. It'd be real easy to refinish just that if you wanted to make it a player. But all right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed checking out these guitars with me today. Don't forget to get registered for GuitarFest at Sweetwater, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.